Okay, good. We're good.
Okay.
Figured
With regards to the Canadian government taking responsibility for the missing and murdered women, with the launch of the National Inquiry, I think they are taking the first step towards responsibility and in really taking this issue seriously and making a commitment to hearing out the families, gathering all that information, because it is over 4,000 missing and murdered women, and moving towards the next step, which is towards action, because there still is, throughout the country, from province to province, various issues and recommendations that have been made time and time again, but now that these recommendations will hopefully not fall under deaf ears.
Okay, next question.
All right, okay.
In your documentary, we see that victims have experienced a normalization of household abuse. How does this affect, the deaths of Aboriginal women?
I think this issue, to me, hits very close to home. I saw it very often while we were working on the documentary. I think household abuse is not just something that is with Aboriginal women. I think within the Aboriginal community, there's a lot of men that are standing up now. I think the Moose Hide campaign, which I was privy to be a part of in its early stages, is a great thing for, within their traditional values, for men to really take action and to take responsibility for themselves, not abuse women, but try to empower them and protect them, and in using their own words, as far as being warriors. And it's not warriors against women, it's to protect them. So from that regard, I think it is changing, but there are still so many things as far as poverty, education, and just absorbing what they've learned. A lot of their parents were residential school survivors and have been beaten, and so the only way that they know how to teach is by doing the same. And I think that's going to take a lot of education and counseling. And I say that there's the traditional counseling within how they know how to do it, which might not necessarily mirror other cultures. So as far as that is concerned, I think we're taking baby steps, but it's also something that more people, and especially young people like yourself, need to speak out about violence immediately when it happens. And sadly, one of our biggest advocates for our film, for Highway of Tears, who is a dear friend of mine, was actually murdered in a domestic altercation a good 2-3 weeks ago. And she was white. So it does happen to people from all walks of life. So it really is important, especially within the Aboriginal culture, for people to speak and to speak out. And sometimes they don't have the platform to do it. So it's really to be as vigilant as possible, because these things, it is a reality of life, a sad reality of life, but something that's hard to avoid, especially if the penalties are not harsh enough.
So you have our condolences for your friend.
Yeah.
And,
The what?
You have our condolences for your
Oh,
friend.
thank you.
And so often media portrays the victim as the cause of their own murder, blaming their lifestyle as a justification for the murder. Why is this a dangerous perspective for society to have?
The media has an extremely large role that they play with regards to how we absorb our information. I think first and foremost, I commend how CBC has started to cover these cases over the last 1.5 to 2 years. They've really shifted from portraying these women as strictly victims or people that it was almost as if it was their fault. A lot of the times in the media, there's a lot more focus on the actual people committing the violence. When we look at famous cases throughout Canadian history, look at the Bernardo case, or you look at the Robert Pickton and the pig farm. A lot of the times, obviously with Pickton, there was so many victims in that case. But a lot of the focus was on this monster, where it seems like on a social level, people are really intrigued by it, but these women go largely unknown. I do feel like that is starting to shift within the media, where people are kind of tired of hearing about the person committing the violence and trying to focus on the actual victims.
Okay. Isaac?
Since the creation of your film, have you seen the awareness of violence against women increase?
Since the initial creation of the Highway of Tears documentary, I have seen a huge shift, and it was beautiful to see as far as people really paying attention to this issue, not only just the violence against Aboriginal women, but also Aboriginal men, and also just violence in general towards women, because I do feel in our society today there are so many different elements from pop culture where it's become almost the norm. We're so desensitized by violence against women that it almost seems like it's okay. We just read it like a headline and move on. I think what the documentary ended up doing, as far as my initiation to really personally show up to every city and stand there with a lot of family members in watching this, is to show that within every community and every person sitting next to you, you never know who is affected. And most likely, even out of the four of you that are sitting in front of me, that if you look one or two spaces to the side of you, somebody's been affected by domestic violence or violence that stretches to a known relative.
Okay. I'm gonna start a new one.